Shalom, friends. Akiva Gersh here from Israel in 5, and I want to invite you to take part in an incredible raffle in honor of the upcoming holiday of Purim. The grand prize winner will get a trip to Israel to come here and explore the historical and spiritual heritage of this land and come at this very, very powerful time. See up close what Meir Panim has been doing and continues to do to support the soldiers during this very challenging time, as well as many of the evacuated families. You'll visit Meir Panim centers, you'll go down to the south, you'll visit communities there, and really be part of this very, very challenging but important and historical and powerful moment. So the link is down below in the description. Join the raffle. We would love to see you here in Israel, and thanks again for all of your support. Did you know that Israel's Declaration of Independence ceremony lasted only about a half an hour and was held partially in secret? Shalom, my friends. This is the Akiva Gersh with Israel in 5, where we give you everything Israel in 5 minutes. Please like and subscribe. And if you have any questions or want to keep the conversation going, please do so below in the comments. The date was May 14th, 1948. That is the day that Israel became a state, the first Jewish sovereign state in over 2,000 years in the ancestral land of the Jewish people. It was in the middle of the War of Independence, which had started the day after the UN partition plan was passed by the UN on November 29th, 1947. The British were still here. They had the final months of the British Mandate, which was given to them by the League of Nations to oversee the establishment of the Jewish state here. And once that plan was passed at the end of November 1947, the British said, we're going to be here for 6 more months, right? The Jewish people knew that. Again, the very next day, war broke out, and it was an internal war, like a civil war between the Jews and the Arabs here in the final months of the Mandate of Palestine. But the Jews knew that the British were going to leave sometime in May. And when that date got announced, the Jewish people knew, the Jewish leadership especially, knew that this was their moment. This was their moment to declare their state, their independence, because once the British left, there was going to be a power vacuum. And who knows what would have happened then? They wanted to take advantage of the situation. But it was a very precarious situation because the Arab countries all around Israel warned and threatened the Jewish leadership here, saying that if you do declare a state, right, we're all going to attack you, and the hundreds of thousands of Jews living in our countries are going to be endangered. That's a lot to put on their shoulders, to carry around on their shoulders. The cabinet, the pre-state cabinet, met and they discussed and they deliberated, and at the very end, they decided we're going to go for it. We are going to declare a state. This is our time. We've been waiting for 2,000 years. Who knows how much longer we'll have to wait if we don't take advantage of this moment right now, even with all of the risks. That vote passed by one vote. One vote changed all of Jewish history. So May 14th was the date. They knew that on May 14th at midnight, right, between May 14th and May 15th, the British were going to leave, that this was their time. This was their last chance to really stand up and declare their state, even though, again, they were in the middle of a war. The ceremony itself was thrown together in just a few days, right? It was just only a few days between the vote of the cabinet saying, yes, we're going to declare the state, and the actual ceremony. So they had to pick a location. They had to get everything ready. There was a lot of things to do. Just to highlight a few of those kind of aspects, they had to choose where were we going to declare independence. Now, the natural choice, of course, is Jerusalem, the eternal capital of the Jewish people. But Jerusalem was under siege, right, by Arab villages and terrorist fighters surrounding the city. Nobody was going in and nobody was getting out. With great difficulty, there were supplies moving into the city. So that was, unfortunately, not a choice. The next best option was Tel Aviv, right, the new modern city of Tel Aviv. They chose the house of the original mayor, one of the original houses of Tel Aviv, built originally in 1909, as the place for the ceremony. It had since turned into an art museum, the first art museum of Tel Aviv, and they did it in a lower kind of room for safety. Now, they didn't want people to know about it, right, because they were afraid. They were in the middle of a war. They thought they were going to get bombed. The ceremony itself was going to get bombed if they made it, too public where it was taking place. So they only invited less than a few hundred people to come in. They sent out an invitation, where it is, what time it is, on Friday, May 14th at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, just a couple hours before Shabbat. And they said, please keep it a secret. Now, Jews, Israelis, not so great at keeping secrets. those who were invited did come, but lots of people found out about it from Tel Aviv, and they swarmed the area around the building, and they were standing outside trying to get a listen, trying to get a look at this very, very historic moment. And again, like we said before, the whole thing only took about half an hour, and half of that half an hour was used up by reading the actual Declaration of Independence, which itself was a story. Was only the final draft was only finished 1 hour before the ceremony took place. There was all kinds of debates and arguments, even what we should say, what should be included, what should not be included in the Declaration of Independence. It was finally agreed upon 1 hour before the ceremony. Someone had to rush from across Tel Aviv to get it to the site of the ceremony in time. It almost didn't make it, but if it did. And the people came, and all the officials were sitting at the table, and David Ben-Gurion banged his gavel, and he started the ceremony at 4 o'clock, reading out the declaration. And at the very, very end, a very, very beautiful thing happened. There was kind of like a second floor to that room. And as soon as the declaration was made, there was an orchestra, like a mini orchestra up there, playing Hatikvah, right, which would become the national anthem of the newly found Jewish state. And people didn't realize that there was an ensemble up there. They heard the music. It felt like angels to them. They started singing. Everybody stood, and they sang Hatikvah, right, which means the hope in Hebrew. And that was the first time that the national anthem, Hatikvah, was sung in the newly born Jewish state. It was a powerful moment. It was an emotional moment. It was a historic moment. And I'll just share one last thing. One of the people who signed the Declaration of Independence was Golda Meir, who eventually would become Israel's first and to date only female prime minister. Now, she was sent to the Evian Conference in 1938 that was organized by America in Evian, France, where 32 delegates from 32 countries came together to see what they can do to help the Jews about Germany and Austria, right? Obviously, about a year and a half before World War II and the Holocaust began. Golda Meir was not allowed to speak. She was invited. She was allowed to be there. She was not allowed to speak. She wanted to speak. She asked to speak. They wouldn't let her. And she just heard all these delegates, one after the other, getting up and making up excuses and explaining why they can't take in any Jews. And she felt her people were without hope, without any help in the world. But that was 1938. 1948, about 10 years later, here she is sitting in Tel Aviv, signing the Declaration of Independence. And she felt like that was a fixing for that moment 10 years ago. And she said, finally, the Jewish people, we have our voice back. We have our power back. Our fate is in our own hands. And it was an emotional moment for her and all the people present. And that's the unique and interesting story of the Declaration of Independence ceremony of the State of Israel.